I know what you're thinking. What in the gosh darn is Bits and Bombs? Bits and Bombs is a podcast deep diving into what it takes to do stand-up from a different comedian every episode. Follow new open micer Peter Doms in his journey to be an okay comic.
Cool. So, episode 2 of Bits and Bombs. Here with Josh Coutinho.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Good chat,
good.
man.
That was good.
Good talk, dude.
Anyway, thanks for having me. I'll see you
thank-
next time.
Yeah, I'll see you next time, dude. See you next time. So, that'd be really embarrassing if we actually use that. Hey?
You should just have a podcast where it's just introductions.
Just introduction.
And see like how high in terms of like societal influence you can get.
Yeah.
Like you just introduce the person and then that's it.
Yeah. Would each episode just be one introduction, or would one episode be like 50 introductions?
No, one episode, one introduction, I reckon.
Yeah.
Super niche, very short.
It's like the TikTok of podcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I reckon like pretty quickly you could get to like state level sports person.
Yeah, okay.
Because you could go comedians around here. And then you go like up the ladder of comedians.
Yeah.
And then they'd know more people around and then...
Yeah, it's kind of like you start with $1. It's like when people like, they start with $1 and then they buy something
That's
flipping.
right. I reckon.
This is the podcast version for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
It's on camera now. That was my idea, if that ever kicks off.
By the magic of editing, that's my idea. So Josh, how long have you been doing when did you first start doing comedy?
Probably about a year and a half ago. I did my first ever gig before COVID.
Yeah.
It was a raw heat, which I think is the standard, right?
Yeah, I know a lot of people that start doing...
Yeah.
Would you be able to actually... Because we mentioned raw in the last episode, but I don't think I actually explained it. Can you explain what raw is?
Right, so it's this competition in Australia where only amateurs can enter and you get 3 shots at it. And I guess the point is to see what the state of like amateur comedy is, and then from I think every state generally has like 1 person, right? Or like some states have 2 depending on how big they are. Like New South Wales generally has 2. But you go to some heats and then you get through to semi-finals and finals. And then the state final winners go down to Melbourne to the Comedy Festival. And this happens every year. And then the winner of that gets to go to the Edinburgh Festival.
Yeah, which is like
which is the comedy festival.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess like even like Raw, there's been a lot of like big names come from that, like Becky Lucas and Aaron Chen and stuff. I don't know, I think some of them were winners and stuff too, but like it's been going for like since the 90s, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think pretty much anyone has done Raw. Like it's just pretty much like a rite of passage, I think.
Yeah, it's like the competition when it comes to comedy.
Yeah, but what's really encouraging is how many people have been so successful and they didn't win.
Yeah, exactly.
So it just kind of goes to show that it's just more of a thing that you do, and it's not the be all and end all of your comedy career by any means.
And it's even like that some of the people that are real successful might not have even made it past their very first heat either, which is also really encouraging.
Yeah, like, definitely.
You can't always rank like a comedy from competitions, like. So.
Yeah, because a competition just means that someone on that night thought that you were better than everyone else. And when I say better, I just mean you performed better. It doesn't mean you're a better comic overall all the time, every single time you go out.
Yeah, and also depends what they're looking for too. Like sometimes I'll be looking for, something with like new ideas and things like that as well.
That's right. So. And then you got to remember as well the national final in Melbourne is eventually televised. So it's also got to be something that they're happy to put on TV. Yeah,
you're not going to make it through if you're just like throwing around C-bombs
and
all that stuff.
That's right.
So.
Even if it's hilarious, which it always is.
Yeah, yeah, always. But I think even like some people have been I've heard of people getting like winning like the state finals and then being like pulled from making it through because they were deemed as like just unpredictable.
Right.
I've heard that's
well,
what
I
I've
mean, that
heard,
makes
like,
sense,
of
right?
people
Because
that have had
it's
friends that that's happened to.
yeah, okay.
So especially if it's someone that's done one set at one heat and then changed it up a lot.
Yeah.
Or done.
Okay.
I guess that would be it. Or if they're
Yeah.
saying crazy shit, I don't know.
Right.
But there has been like rejudging or re-choosing who goes because just unpredictability for television.
Fair.
Which is understandable.
Yeah, makes sense.
But so your first gig was which Raw? So 2020 or 2019?
I actually can't remember which
Yep.
year it was, but it was down on the Gold Coast.
Okay.
And then, so I did that, and then I guess the main reason was I just didn't know where to do comedy.
I think that's the thing that Georgina and I brought up
Yeah.
last time too. Was that a lot of people, and I've noticed like when I did Raw this year, like you see so many people that you've never seen the scene before, and I think it's one of the only, at least in the Brisbane scene, it's the most accessible way to do it. You see a form come up, you enter yourself in, like where a lot of the rooms and stuff, you kind of have to have some kind of connection, or at least be outgoing and start contacting these places to see how to get spots.
Yeah.
There's not, we don't really have any gigs where you just like, a lot of people would think open mic nights, you rock up on the night, you can get on stage. That is not the case.
Yeah,
like at
not
least
at
here.
all.
I know that
Yeah.
Sydney and stuff have more of that because there's just a lot more rooms.
Yeah.
But so I guess like Raw is where you see a lot of people doing comedy for the first time, and like such a daunting way to do it.
Yeah, but also you kind of have nothing to lose. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like if it was my first gig, and I just thought, well, I mean, best case scenario, something really cool happens.
Yeah.
Worst case, like, who cares? You know, like you go into a room and you say something dumb for 5 minutes, and then you leave, and then it's done. And at least you can say, well, I've done it, and I've given it a red hot crack.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you might meet someone who knows how to do the next gig or where to go.
Yeah,
or
I
what
guess
to do.
well, Raw would be great for that because there are a lot of like regulars in the scene that do a lot of gigs that would be doing these comps as well, and that's a good way to get started too.
Yeah.
Like I've had some like people that were doing their first night ask me for advice.
Yeah.
Like recently when I did
Yeah.
Raw, so like
Yeah.
it's kind of cool to
Yeah, that's
see
cool.
people doing it first time, getting so excited, also like so nervous, but so where did you go from there? Like, so you did your first gig. Was that an opportunity for you to find other rooms?
Yeah, so from there, I met a couple people who actually said, oh, yeah, you got to get on the Facebook page. And these guys, like, I think back then, Sit Down Comedy Club, you had to actually call up.
Yeah, I
it
heard
wasn't
about
a
that,
Facebook form. So you had to call up on, like, a certain day between certain times. And then they'd say, all right, you can do a spot on this room. So from there, that's how I got started. Did one more gig.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit. So then it was just a big break for ages. And you know how when you first start, you're so nervous as it is. Like every single part about the whole process is daunting. Like calling up to get the gig, you're nervous. Then when they tell you when it is, you're nervous. And then the 3 weeks before, you're freaking out. And then you get there and you're nervous. And then you get on stage and you're still nervous. And then it's so hard. And then you do it twice. And then you have to wait a couple of years before doing it again. It's almost impossible to kind of get back in. Like you've just built up this courage to jump in the icy cold water. And then you get out and then you got to wait 2 years before you can swim again. Yeah.
So 2 years. So COVID hit. But how long did COVID put off like gigs for you?
It was ages. I don't know. I say 2 years, but I can't remember when it actually started and finished. I feel like it was all a blur, to be honest.
Yeah. I feel like in Queensland, like lockdowns and stuff was only a few months, if that. And I feel like comedy was a weird exception because like live music
was dead.
But if you could sit in a venue, I think it was fine.
Yeah. I think the other thing with open mics especially is because there's so many just individuals running places, it's impossible to get. It's so hard as it is to get people in, but then when people are being restricted in what they can do and they can't do, they probably just didn't want us. So
yeah, definitely.
Pubs and clubs were probably just like, no, we'll axe it for now and we'll just struggle doing our thing.
Yeah. To be fair, I wasn't in the scene, so I'm just kind of I have no
Yeah,
idea
this is
like what was
just
going
based
on.
like, to be honest, once it hit, I wasn't even really looking because
Yeah.
I was exactly the same. I was like, well, I don't really want to go out and then
And people were so scared to leave their house as well.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. But then they also, so because I live on the Gold Coast, I wasn't going to drive an hour up
yeah.
or like commit to something and then the rules change and then you can't leave the Gold Coast anymore. Because
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, that's what made it difficult as well.
Yeah. Okay.
But then as soon as it was done, I was ready to get back in.
Yeah. So do you remember your first gig back in?
So Fiona McGarry runs this comedy course, and at the end of it is a performance. And so it was the only way really that I could guarantee I was going to get a spot. And I was like, look, it was so hard to get up the first couple times.
Yeah.
This is at least going to give me a bit of confidence, and like I'll go there and then either I'll learn something new or she's going to say, you kind of know what you're doing, jump up at the end and have a crack at it. And that's what happened. And then that night of the performance, the graduation performance for the course, Fideli, the owner of Sit Down, said, hey man, that was really good. Do you want to do some more spots later on? We'll be in touch. And
Yeah.
then it kind of just went from there.
Yeah, that's sick. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what is the, like, how long does that course go for?
It was like 2 days,
Yeah.
like a weekend, just at the Sit Down Comedy Club. We just sat around a table. We chatted about comedy, things we liked, how to approach writing in your own voice, which I felt like I had a pretty good grasp on because I'm quite self-aware normally. I know what I like and I know what I'm good at, and I know that it doesn't always align, which I think is a really important distinction for when you're starting. Is you got to know where your strengths lie, even if it's not something that you like.
Yeah.
Because at the very start, at least, your scope of talent is so tiny. You have to stick within that if you want to have any kind of success, at least early on, because otherwise you're going to get up there and die a terrible death every single time.
Yeah.
And it's going to kill you, and you're not ever going to want to do it again.
Yeah. So do you have an example of, like, what you had, like, kind of going outside of what your normal kind of thing you'd want to do is?
So I like anyone who can approach a really touchy subject and make the audience feel kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But then also kind of hold their hand through the whole thing and then release all that pressure at the end. And there's a great sense of relief. And I think that's like the most gangster thing ever. If you can do that really well.
As an open micer, especially fresh, that's such a fucking big task.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And then you see open micers go, I'm going to do that immediately.
Oh, yeah.
And they just go deep into something that they should definitely not be going deep into.
Especially the edgy, edgy is such a default, like,
Yeah,
open micer.
that's right.
Dude in his 20s kind of thing to do. And it's like a lot of, like, other people in the scene that have been doing it for, like, 20 years say, don't do that when you first start.
Yeah.
Because you just, and it, like, they even say sex jokes are the same thing. Because you just don't know how to, like, use that properly yet.
Yeah, and also your perspective of certain topics at 20 years old is so different to the audience's perspective, because generally these people are in their 30s and 40s and their lived experience is way different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Their day-to-day is so different to anything that you or me are going through day-to-day. And so just the way that they view the world is different. And so your perspective on edgy topics probably doesn't sit well with them normally anyway. And then you're in the context of an open mic and you don't actually really know what you're doing either. It's just not going to end well. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's not going to be the worst thing in the world, but it's not going to be the raging success you fantasize about in the car ride over.
And you also have, like, people like Jim Jeffries where people are coming to see Jim Jeffries. They know what they expect, like, or Jimmy Carr and people like that. The, like, kind of darker comics.
Yeah.
They have a crowd that I know what they're gonna go there for. You're an open mic night.
Yeah.
Like, it might not fly
Yeah.
the way you want it to. I've seen edgy stuff fucking crush the most at some gigs too.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's like a hard, fast rule to go by, but it's just like a thing to keep in mind, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and also something that you should remember or keep in mind as an open micer, or something that was encouraging for me, is that the audience actually wants you to do well.
Yeah.
And so they're kind of on your side, but when you come in really hot, they not lose faith a little bit, but they kind of retreat.
Yeah.
Because they feel uncomfortable because they're not sure if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, like if you have something at the top of your set, like top of your 5 minutes, that's like divisive, you've already lost them.
Yeah.
Where I guess like just going by what other people have told me, like it's good to kind of introduce yourself in some way, like, you know, make fun of the way you look or something that the crowd is thinking about you. If you can acknowledge that straight off the bat, they kind of builds a rapport with the crowd.
That's right.
And then, you know, towards the end of your set, that's when you might be able to sneak in something that's a bit crazy.
Yeah, you're on the same side then. You already, I call it, you win them over.
Yeah.
So in that first like 30 seconds or whatever, if you win them over, they'll go with you anywhere. And that's the key thing, I suppose, is winning them over. You don't want to spend 4 minutes, 30 seconds doing what you want to do and then win them over at the end, because what a waste of everyone's night. But if you flip that around, you win them over, then you can still do what you want to do, and they might kind of follow you a little bit. And then you can, from there, you have that really good audience feedback of, okay, well, that is something, but it just wasn't quite right yet. Whereas if you do that first and you haven't won them over, you're going to get nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So with back to the course, doing that course, did you like come back with stuff that you wrote prior to COVID?
I had like a bunch of ideas, and I wasn't sure if I wasn't sure if the way that I was writing things was okay to do on stage.
Yeah.
You know, like you don't really, if you've done 2 gigs, you don't know what's okay and what's not. You don't know, am I doing this right? Is this the wrong way? Is there a way I should be doing it? And that's what's kind of cool. And also what sucks is that there's no real clear defined path. There's something that works generally for everyone. But you mostly have to figure out, this is what I've got. How do I get this onto the stage? And you got to be happy with bombing every now and then. You're just gonna eat a big bag of shit every now and then. Yeah,
definitely. That's where you learn to be a comic.
That's
like,
right.
Eating shit is where you really like get into it and learn, and that's where you just like. And I think if you can also get to a healthy point where you're just like, I fucking bombed. Like you can kind of laugh at it or acknowledge it, but also like not let it destroy you, but not also just brush it off as blaming the crowd, but also like utilizing it, being like, okay, that was me. I didn't hit it that time. What can I do?
Yes.
Rather than, what room can I do that has a better crowd, or like blah blah blah. Like just see like what angle you can change, like how you can change the angle, where you can go.
That's right.
At it different to see if you can get like laughs, I guess, next time.
Yeah, and it comes back to self-awareness as well. You go, what you said, what can I do better? What did I do wrong? And then you watch how all the other acts address the crowd and the way that they deliver their material. Because you can deliver the same material in a lot of different ways. You can be really rigid and kind of stick to a script, or you can try and work it in more like a conversation, or you can do a bit of crowd work and relate to them and then get into a bit, or there's so many ways to do it, and you're not going to know any of that when you first start. You're just going to get up there and suck.
Yeah.
And you just have to have faith that what you're saying might not be the best, but that doesn't mean you should just throw it out immediately. Until you try a bunch of different ways to deliver it and none of them work, then you know it's probably the bit.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. So you went into the course with new ideas, like
I had
for the most part.
I had ideas and I had things I wanted to say, but then also in the course you get told, you get like a couple writing exercises or something like that.
Yep.
And then you kind of just work on those things. You don't have to come in with a heap of material. You can come in with absolutely nothing. But it is good practice to just think of something and see it all the way through from start to finish.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you might find something that you never thought of in that process, and it might lead to something else.
Yeah, I think that's where like doing like writing, like having writing prompts and random stuff like that can also get new ideas too. Like it would be like find something in the room and make fun of it or something. And then you can kind of might be able to go from there.
That's right.
Or think of your most embarrassing things that have ever happened to you. And then you can be like, can access like a deep memory. Like, actually, that would make a good bit for stage as well. So yeah. So you you did the course, did the graduation night there.
Yep.
And then from there, like, what other gigs were you doing?
From there, it was just all of the sit-down open mic stuff. So there was a period where they had like 3 or 4 open mic nights on a week, and I would sign up for every single one and just do whatever I got. There was a lot of Fitzy's Logan Homes, which I've
never done that room.
I loved Fitzy's Logan Home because firstly it was close to home, so if it sucked, at least it was a shorter drive back home. But more often than not, because everyone said it was rough, I feel like they went in with the mindset of I'm already behind, whereas because I was new, I was like, well, I've got nothing to lose, so I just kind of, you give it 100%, and then the crowd goes with you. Yeah.
To have that mindset so early on is like...
Well, I mean, it's pretty impressive. It's true though, right? Like
no, absolutely.
You have nothing to lose, so who cares? Like, just go for it, I reckon.
Yeah, because I think even like, it was only recently, like I did a gig where, you know, there's like one crowd member and like, it's just like all the comics watching you. It was like super awkward tension.
Yeah.
And I like said to one of the comics, I was like, I just don't see the benefit in doing this. And he said, it makes you comfortable with the awkward.
Yeah.
And that kind of made me go like, fuck, you're right. Like, I need to change my perspective and like you can use those rooms to like the rougher ones where you have nothing to lose to just try new shit.
That's right.
Go off the fly, fucking be weird, be crazy.
Yeah.
And the rooms with the smaller crowds, I've noticed that the more engaging you are with the crowd, like they're the people that fucking kill at those rooms.
Yeah.
Because, you know,
you're
like
the man.
The 2 people that are there, if you're talking to them and joking around, they're going to fucking love that shit.
Yeah.
So, I think where if there's a bigger crowd, it's a lot easier to do your set and kind of go off your flow and
it's strange. It's the opposite of what you think. The bigger the crowd, I feel that the easier it is kind of to a point, because it just becomes a big black mass.
Yeah.
And you don't see anyone's face, and you just
like,
you just get the laugh or no laugh. You don't see the individuals feeling uncomfortable in front of you.
Yeah.
At least early on. And then the more you do, the more gigs you do, you start to notice, even in the bigger crowds, you see people's faces, you address the crowd a bit more.
You see
get
them on their phone.
That's right, yeah. Or you see what they're eating or what they're drinking, and then you can tell by the number of empty glasses on the table which people you should probably address and you'll get a good laugh out of, or
start targeting the crowd.
That's right.
Yeah, very cool. So I guess that comes to where I met you was the Raw State Finals last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess you did pretty well there.
Yeah. So something I've never actually said out loud or admitted is because I'd done Raw once, I was like, I've only got 2 shots left. I'm going to wait a little bit, get better at this, and then save up my 2 just in case. And then Fideli rang me and said, hey, I noticed you haven't signed up for Raw yet. Are you going to do it? And in that moment, I went, yeah, okay, I'm going to do it.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was not at all planning on doing it, but I think what he had noticed was that I had 5 minutes that was going well.
Yeah.
And I wasn't changing things for the sake of changing them. I was making small adjustments to make it better. Whereas I think a lot of people will go into a competition and they try a set, and if something doesn't work, they remove the whole bit and they put something else in, or they take out a whole minute, and then your 5 minutes doesn't really work as well anymore, because it's not, all of a sudden, it's not something you've been doing for 3 months in a row. It's something you've been doing for 2 weeks, really. And then, of course, by the time the heat comes around, you haven't practiced it enough. Whereas I'd been doing the same 5 minutes because I was so new for a little while, but changing out little things subtly. So it still felt quite comfortable still nervous as hell every time I did it. But I think I had done like 10 or 15 gigs by the time Raw came around. And then just kind of got to the heat feeling comfortable, knowing that the people that I was in the heat with, I had seen at other gigs, and I felt comfortable that I knew what I was doing. Everyone else was nervous, I think, for a few different reasons. I don't know if this bit's going to work. I don't know what's going to happen here. How's this crowd going to react? Da-da-da-da-da. Whereas the only thing I was nervous about was how am I going to perform this stuff. I was just terrified of forgetting.
I have the same thing where, like, especially early on, like, I was more nervous about the remembering everything rather than the actual, like, the public speaking aspect, the crowd, if they'll laugh. Like, it was always...
I think that's a blessing.
Like, the remembering. So I was, like, hammering, rehearsing in my room. I made sure I do, like, I think the week or 2 weeks leading up to the state final, I made sure every day, at least 5 times running through my set. Like, I don't know how I was doing this, but I was like blowing my voice out as well.
Right.
I think because of like the way I was projecting when I was rehearsing, I was like starting to like hurt my voice.
Right.
And like I also like, I guess a part of that set, like I was doing like a concreter voice, so I'd like do a real raspy kind of voice. I was just fucking my voice up. I was like, I need to learn better techniques. On how to do that. But it's
good that you're so obsessive over that script, for lack of a better word, because then, by the time you get to the heat, that's the only thing you're worrying about. You don't care about all the other factors that you can't control. Whereas I think if we were both a bit more experienced, maybe we would have been worried about other things. Too.
I think that's where I'm at now. Like I'm at now is like not really worried unless I'm trying newer stuff or I've like chopped and changed stuff that day. In the like the flow of the joke, that's where I'm like, well, I'm worried if I'll like fuck that up. But most of it now is like, how is the crowd going to respond? That type of stuff for me now that I've been doing it for a while.
But even that, like, you can't really like, how's the crowd going to respond? Like, they'll respond however they respond. You know,
exactly.
You can control how you deliver it, and maybe if you don't go up first, you can see, or even if you do go up first, you can still see what the MC is doing in terms of delivery and how that's working with the crowd. To be honest, first like 2-3 performers are kind of still feeling out the room, and the room's also kind of feeling out what the night's going to be like. So I guess it's hard. It is hard to go up early, but then if you're in the second half, you can watch all the other acts before you and see what they're doing, and then you can go, all right, I'm going to commit to delivering it in this way and see how the crowd reacts to that, because I think that's what's going to get them. And you can stick to the same material. It's just that the way you pass on your message is different.
Cool. So Raw. So what happened at Raw?
So it was a really...
Or how'd you go at Raw? Sorry.
It was a really good heat, and I actually made a couple friends in the heat and got through to the semi-final. And then from the semi-final, I got through to the state final, which is where I met you, right? So you'd flown down from Mackay. And at that point, I was like, well, I wasn't even going to enter this thing. I didn't think I'd get this far. Whatever happens, happens. And then I won it.
That's pretty fucking cool.
So,
it
was sick. Like, it was the best. Like, it was such a cool thing to have happened. When you're not expecting it at all. And I think that's probably the key for anyone who wants to do Raw, is you don't do it to win. do it because you get another gig. Like I'd done 12, 15 gigs. I don't know what it was by the time it came around. I was just stoked to be able to get up on stage again and do my 5 minutes. It's free. You can just go and do it. And then you get to a heat and it means that you get one more chance to do it. And then you get to the semi-final. It means you get one more chance to do your set. And I think that's what's really pushed me along, is like, I just love being able to do it. I don't really care about winning or losing. It's just like, I'm stoked that I get to do comedy at all, because there was 2 years where I really wanted to.
Yeah.
And we literally could not.
Yeah. And like comp crowds are fucking hot too. They're
the best.
They're the most giving.
They're the best
crowds. Like, yeah, they're just there to have fun. They're there to support their friends and stuff, but they also like supporting other people that are like, I guess there's like that, because it's an amateur comp. There's a lot of like, oh, good for them kind of.
Yeah, that's right.
mentality.
They're a lot more forgiving. And as much as I said, like, as much as crowds want you to win, they want you to do well, at those nights, it's another level. Like they've actually paid money to come out and see you. So that's like a huge thing for an open micer, is like, wow, these people have paid money to come and watch comedy, and I'm about to get onto this awesome stage and perform. But yeah, you're 100% right. Those crowds are just so hot and so ready for anything that's coming. And I think they expect some train wrecks as well. Yeah. So as long as you can just get up there and do your thing, they really don't care. They're happy to support you.
Yeah. So how did it feel like just hearing your name get called out? And like, what was the first thing you thought like when you won that comp?
So I didn't want my friends, family, anyone to be there because I was so nervous.
Shit.
Yeah. I didn't want anyone in the crowd that I knew to be there, because if I saw them, I'd forget what came next. Like I'd just be like, oh no, I can't think of the next bit. And so it was kind of like, I turned my phone off after I did my set, because I didn't want to message anyone and say, oh yeah, it went really well, or but to be honest, on stage when I did my set, it felt like the best I'd ever done, and so I was just so happy with that. Like I couldn't think of anything better from that point. And so then when they were announcing the runner-up and they didn't say my name, I was like, oh, could be on here. And then one of the other comedians went, I told you. I was like, dude, don't say that right now. Like, don't get my hopes up after just being like so stoked with how it went anyway. But then, they called my name and I was just like, oh, okay. And then just kind of like roboted my way through the crowd up to the stage. And then it was just kind of, I don't know, it was surreal. And then the guy from Melbourne Comedy Festival, Gideon, comes up and he's like, hey man, we're going to fly you down to Melbourne. And then I just went blank. I was like, I made it. I'm flying down to Melbourne. Someone's buying my plane ticket. Yeah. This is it.
That's how I felt just flying to Brisbane from my car. I was like, oh, I don't need to pay for this.
So cool.
I mean, I would have, but I'm glad I didn't.
100%. Yeah. I wasn't expecting that at all.
And that would have been like so much to process, because like winning it, but also like then not only did you win the free flights, you win the opportunity to be a part of the Melbourne Comedy Festival and be on TV. Like all that shit would have hit you.
Huge. Like big time. And what was also really cool was like, leading up to that, so I had done a couple of nights at Sit Down Comedy Club, and I had met other comedians, like proper comedians, who were all so encouraging to younger comedians. And there was this one guy, Jared Goundry, who came up and said, hey man, are you doing Raw this year? And I was like, yeah, like kind of half. And he goes, well, if it goes well, let me know. I run a room down in Melbourne and you can come do a spot there. And I was so like, having done like 12 gigs, I was like, unbelievable, like that you would even offer. But the fact that someone's so nice and so generous was just such a huge thing for me, because the scene can be really nice, but people can just be nice for the sake of being nice. They don't actually have to go out of their way and say, yeah, well, if it goes well, just come to a spot. Like, it's no big deal. Like, and that was awesome. And then when you win the state final, sit down was just like, all right, well, we want you to go down there as prepared as possible. These are all the gigs we got coming up. If you want any of them, you've got a spot. And I was just like, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah, I remember seeing you doing like every night.
Every single night. It was insane. I was so tired, and I was working full time at a call center, at a Centrelink contractor at the time. And so I was gigging at night, getting back super late and waking up and doing the early morning shift, and then going back home, having a nap real quick, having a feed, and then driving back up to Brisbane, and then was just absolutely exhausted by the time the comedy festival came around. But after I won Raw, I turned my phone back on. I told my family, I was like, oh, so I won. And then I got a bunch of messages, and then I sent Jared a message on Instagram. I was like, so it went really well. I'm coming down to Melbourne. And then again, like, just the nicest guy ever, just goes, oh, great, I'm actually doing a show on the festival this year. You can come open for me for 2 nights. And I lost it. I was like, wow, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Went down to Melbourne, did the show. We get like a little pass, and you can go and see other shows in the festival because you're one of the people in it. So I got to see Lano and Woodley, who I'd always wanted to see, and it was the best thing ever. And then went directly from Lano and Woodley's show to opening for Jared at his show just around the corner at the bottom of this tiny little bar in this hot little cramped room with like 50 people in it who are right on top of you. It was just the best.
Fuck, that's the dream, isn't it?
That's yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Wow, and that happened so quickly for you too.
So quickly.
And like, what was actually... that was really funny. So that was the night I met you.
Yeah.
But I didn't actually meet you like before, because like our competition's so stressful. Everyone's in their own like little zone.
Oh, and that green room just stinks like nervousness and BO. It's the worst. Like and I was so like, we both nervous before you go up. I was just like, I got to get out of this room. I can't be in here anymore with all these other people freaking out. Yeah. It's killing me.
And it was so funny because I went up to you. I was like, after you won, I was like, oh, awesome set, dude. And you're like, thanks, man. Are you here to support someone tonight?
Oh, no.
And I'm like, yeah, me.
That's funny as.
Yeah, you're like, sorry, bro. I'm just in my own. I'm like, I get it, dude. Like, I think you said, like, yeah, you were just in your own zone so much. And I'm like, me too.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
totally
everything's a blur. Hey, like, when you're starting, you literally can only focus on your set in your brain. You don't notice anything. Like, I reckon I was performing at Sit Down for like 6 months before I noticed how the tables were laid out. And one day I walked in, I was like, oh, these look new. Are they nice? And Fideli's like, it's been like that for like a year. I was like, oh, my bad.
Yeah. And I think, so, fuck, I blanked out completely.
We're going to talk about how we met.
Yeah, talking about how we met. And then, yeah, so after that, you I guess it's that same thing, like having comics. You're like, oh, because I think at that point, like, I had no plan to move to Brisbane. Yeah. I was like, I'm going to move here at the end of the year. You're like, dude, add me on socials. And like,
yeah,
I thought it was one of those like moments where like another comic just being like, hey, I'll help you get spots or give you advice. Like, when you come to the scene, let me know. So I thought that was really cool.
Well, I definitely had no advice to give because I didn't know what the hell I was doing, really. And I still don't give people advice like on what they should do specifically. But 100%, like, you've come all the way from Mackay. I know how nervous I was. I could only imagine how you must have felt getting up at the sit down, coming from Mackay, not knowing anyone, all of that kind of stuff. So I was like, well, like, as if I'm not going to be this guy's mate here. And then you said you wanted to move to Brisbane, which is huge. I love when people chase things that they really want. My favorite people in my life are out chasing the things that they want, and it means they move across the country. It means they move state to state. They pick up work wherever. But if you chase more life, you're not going to regret it. And so I think when you said, I'm going to move from Brisbane, and you didn't know anyone, I was like, that's the best thing ever. Like, you should 100% do it. And if I can help you do that in any way, even if it's just so that you have a mate here when you do get down. Like, yeah, let's do it. And it's worked out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's fully worked out. And then what's really funny actually is after you moved down, we didn't see each other for months.
Yeah, it was ages.
It was such a long time.
Where are all these gigs you've been doing?
I know.
I guess we were just being put on different lineups.
That's right. That's right. And we were just messaging a lot, and we weren't ignoring each other. It's just we literally never aligned with what we were doing or where we were or.
Yeah.
But even when you move to an entirely new place, you got to worry about jobs and just general life admin, I guess.
Yeah, I moved here with no job.
Yeah.
Worked out, but it was so stressful at the time.
So stressful. But like again, if you're gonna do stuff like that, I'm putting myself in your shoes. I would have loved to have someone come up to me and be like, "Hey man, if you need anything, just like message me. I'll see if there's anything around for you," kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I try and do that for people that I run into now. Like whenever someone is like, "Oh, I'd like to give comedy a go," I'm like, as much as I'll help you get a spot in whatever way I can. Like, it's not that I have any like crazy connections,
exactly.
but it's like
I'll do what I can.
I can do what I do what I can, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to just try and help others, because comedy is such a fucking brutal hobby.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get into in terms of if you don't know anyone, it's hard to know how to get into it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And then you don't ever regret meeting people, or you don't ever regret just trying to help someone.
Yeah.
It leads to things like this. Now we're mates. We hit each other up if there's something cool going on. We go, "Hey, that was really cool. How was it? How was your night? Did you go out?" I love that you go to live music all the time, so I get to live vicariously through you, even though some of those gigs look metal AF.
Yeah, there's a lot of punching.
There's a lot of punching.
I don't do the punching.
Yeah.
It's very scary sometimes. But I think it's cool. From that, a really good friendship was made. Yeah. And you got me a birthday card.
Yeah.
That said from Dad.
Yeah. My son.
Yeah. So, but what was so back to the Raw thing with there was about a week turnaround, wasn't there, between winning and then going to the finals?
No, I think it was a
2
little...
weeks.
Yeah, I think there was a couple of weeks. But my goal for the year was to do 20 gigs.
For the year?
For the year. So that was one every 2 weeks, I thought was okay. And then by the time the comedy festival rolled around, I'd done 20 gigs at sit-down comedy club venues.
Yep.
Alone. And so I was cheering. I literally could not have imagined it going that well, just based on number of gigs ticked off in such a short period. So I feel like when you do something because you love it, you really can't lose, you know? Yeah. There's no such thing as losing. You have a bad experience and it means that you learn something new, or you have really good experiences and you feel like the man. There's no better feeling than chasing something that you love and it pays off big time. I think you'll always be rewarded for genuinely chasing something because you love to do it.
Yeah, and there's with the nothing to lose thing, I've had friends say because I've been known to do things and not stick to it or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But I'm also someone that wants to try as many things as I can.
Yeah.
Just for experience wise. And I said even if I was to quit comedy tomorrow and be I did open mic for a year, that's still a fucking
that's
cool
sick.
Time in your life and cool experiences that you had.
Yeah, and you meet people along the way, you pick up skills along the way. You're comfortable now doing a podcast, which you probably wouldn't have been if you hadn't been doing comedy for over a year. It would have been so awkward and so weird, and you wouldn't have known what to talk about or how to hold a mic or do anything.
Yeah.
But now if you go to a social event, you have that confidence where you can just get up and talk to people, and there's so much that you fall in love with on the journey of chasing something you love that you would never think about if you only think of the end result.
You got to love the process.
Yeah, as I wish there was another way to say that because I feel like it gets said so often.
Yeah,
but you really do have to just be on it for the journey. You just have to do it because you want to do the thing, not because you want to get to a place.
Yeah, and part of that journey is eating shit at open mics and driving home sad about it or things like that. But like, then you can look back at that and be like, oh, that was a funny thing that happened to me.
If you're smart about it, you go, well, okay, tonight sucked and I feel terrible about it. How do I avoid ever feeling like that again?
Yeah.
What do I need to change? And then also you got to know it's still going to hurt, but at least if you're happy that you did everything you could with the skill set you currently have, who cares if it went badly? It was just not on the cards for you tonight.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
it just wasn't your day.
So, with the Raw thing, like so you get to Melbourne and how did you feel like seeing there's like a big theatre that you're performing at? Like, how many seats was that?
It was, I think there was like 1,000 seats in there or something. Like it was it was
a bit more
lot.
than Fitzy's.
Yeah. And everything was huge, but like I was saying, a big crowd doesn't really mean anything more than. I feel like you get to a point where it's like the number could get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it wouldn't make a squat of difference, you know? Like it's just a sea of faces out there, and you just have to get up and do your 5 minutes. And it's the same thing with the cameras. I feel like you're not thinking, oh, this is going out on TV and this is so many people are going to see it. You just kind of get up there and do your thing, and then it's over. Like, you just live in the moment as much as you possibly can. And that's kind of it, really. You don't notice the crowd. You don't notice the cameras being on. You don't think, oh, this is going to be on TV and people are going to see what I'm wearing and if I wash my face this morning or if my makeup's weird or if my clothes look bad, or you just do the thing, man.
Just do the thing.
Yeah.
So actually with the so you went really well, it was on TV. But I also heard about a little diva moment you had.
Oh, yeah. I made the absolute most of this experience because I didn't know when it was ever going to happen again, something that huge. We're hanging out backstage, and the comedy festival has so many staff. And there's this one lady who was kind of looking after us, and she goes, going out to 7-Eleven, does anyone want a drink, something to eat, anything at all? And everyone's just kind of like, oh, yeah, I'd love a Powerade. Or she's like, what flavor would you like? And they go, oh, just whatever, like anything fine at all. And then she goes, no, tell me exactly what you want. We'll get it. And I was like, that's the coolest thing ever. And you can tell as well that when people are being like too humble towards someone who wants to do something for them, or someone it's their job to do it, so they literally don't care. They would actually prefer if you were like, can I have this specifically? And that just makes their job so much easier. So I could tell that was happening, and this lady's like, tell me exactly what you want, I'll get it for you. And so then it comes around to me, and everyone's going, oh, I'll get a Gatorade, I'll get a Coke, maybe just a chocolate bar, whatever. And I was like, I would love some extra bubble mint flavored gum. It's pink. There's like a white strip on it with a pink sparkly thing. It's sugar free. It's the best thing ever. And she goes, that was very specific. And I was like, yeah, I don't want the spearmint one or the peppermint one. Bubble mint, please. And she goes, why that one? And I said, because it tastes like childhood. And everyone else in the room was like, what is wrong with you, you diva? Like, we've all just said, nah, get me whatever, and you've gone so specific on this flavor of
gum. You had a reason ready.
Yeah, 100%. And then she came back with the gum, dude. Like, that was the sickest thing ever.
You made it.
Yeah, 100%. Are you kidding me?
Forget all the other stuff, all the festival shows, like.
You forget it.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone went out and got gum for me, the one that I wanted. That was the coolest thing ever. And it's never happened since, so I was 100% right in living out my diva fantasy there.
Fuck. So good.
So stupid.
Yeah, so I guess you're a year into comedy now. Like, do you have an idea, like, what's next for you?
yeah, just gig as much as I can, get as much material as I can.
Mm-hmm.
Paid gigs are cool. Like, it's cool to be doing open mics and you feel like super punk rock when you're doing it for the love of it. But to also be doing a heap of gigs and then to be good enough that people say, hey, I want to give you some money because I think you're really good. That's awesome too. Like, I think there's a real weird relationship with people who are creative and making money from that creativity. I feel like you should probably knock your ego down a few pegs and remember, like, you're doing this thing because you love it. Just because you're getting money from it doesn't mean you love it any less. But also, at the same time, don't just do gigs for the money. No one's going to think you're an asshole for doing a gig that kind of sucked if you're getting paid $100 for it. But if that's all you do, you kind of got to reassess why you're doing the thing.
Yeah, cool.
I reckon just as many gigs as possible, whatever opportunity comes my way, I'm grabbing it with both hands and making the absolute most of it. If there's paid gigs out there, if there's free gigs that I have to drive an hour for, but the crowd's going to be really hot, or it's my mates that are running it, they're starting up a room or something, I want to be a part of it because just love the process.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it too, because like a lot of people like ask me like, oh, what's your goal with comedy? Like, do you want to turn into a career? I'm like, honestly, like, I'm just kind of seeing where it goes. Like, I have like little goals and stuff. Like, I think, you know, the like doing a show eventually would be like a good goal to have, but it's kind of like just doing little goals, like maybe getting enough material along to do like a split show, or getting to the point where you can MC.
That's right.
But I don't have like any grand like, oh, I'm gonna do a special or anything like that. Like, I'm just kind of seeing
so
where it goes.
many things to do, like, and you just have to get into the scene first. And you're right, split show. Never heard of it before I started doing comedy, but I would love to do that. I would love to get to the point where you can make enough money just doing comedy for that to be your main thing. I would love that. If you can, I feel like you also really got to define what success is, right? If you're a successful comedian, it doesn't mean that you have a special on Netflix or Stan or anything else. You can get by year to year, get kids through school, feed your family, buy a house by being someone that a lot of people haven't heard of. And there's people that we both know who do that.
Yeah.
And they're cool as, man. Like, that's the most incredible thing ever, is they've chased the dream. They got really good at something that maybe they had a natural talent for anyway, but it's still hard work to get to the point where people recognize that and they say, hey man, like, I want to give you some money to do this for me. Would you come and entertain my workplace for an hour? And then you get to the point where you're just doing that all the time. That's the most incredible thing ever, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can chase what you love and make that.
And live comfortably, and...
What else do you need?
Yeah.
Honestly.
Even to get to a point where I think stand-up would like be like some portion of my wage, and be able to cut down an hour, like supplement would be fucking cool too. Yeah. Like, yeah. Living the dream.
Literally though. Living my dream. It's sick. It's the best.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I think we're about at that time. But thanks for coming, dude.
Thanks so much for having me.
This is so fun.
Any excuse to hang out with you.
Yeah.
I feel like we don't really cross paths too often still, but we're messaging all the time, but it's nice to actually see you in person and hang out.
Dude, always welcome to just hit me up and just hang out.
Will do.
Sick.
Thanks, mate. Dude, that was really good.
That was fucking sick, dude.